Welcome to Shop Talk 2018, presented by Show Chic, who always puts the rider in first place.
Well, I just want to start by saying thank you, first of all, for inviting me to speak here. And secondly, obviously, I'm very overwhelmed that so many people want to hear my ideas. So thank you very much. And again, I just want to also say that there are so many styles to riding, and there's not one style that's right and one style that's wrong. So tonight, what I'm going to share is what I like. It's simply my style. It's not the style. It's my style. And it's what I've found over years and years of experience and horses teaching me, and let's make sure we go there. Horses teach us. We try to teach them, but guess what? The best student we have is the horse. And if we listen to them, there's a lot of information. So my thoughts and my experiences really come from the horse and from my eyes. And I think we're all very, very blessed that with this sport, it's never, ever a chance you get to stop learning. You always get to find something new because there's a new horse, there's a new issue, there's a new problem, there's a new insecurity, there's a new confusion, there's a new tension. Something comes up, and it's a great opportunity to learn. So that's what I certainly love about the sport. Obviously, with young horses, I became quite known with young horses. I contribute that to my growing up. When I was 16 and I could drive a car, and back in those days you were allowed to get your license like in the first day and off you go. So I was lucky enough that I worked for the Holsteiner Breed Association. They were based in Virginia at that time. A little louder. Pull it up a little. Test. Oh, that's just camera. Sorry. Yeah. And like I was saying, when I was 16, I was very blessed that I was given a very difficult horse to ride for the Holsteiner Breed Association, and they were impressed with just my way with the horse, in that I didn't fight the horse. I let the horse have some spirit, and I had, I guess they say, rules without restriction. And I think that's a very important term. Rules without restriction. You try to restrict a horse, you're going to get in trouble. You don't have any rules, you're going to get in trouble. So this horse was just hardly anybody could ride him, and I thought he was pretty talented. I was there shopping for horses with my family, and we were in the low category of horses. That's what we could afford. And this superstar came in and it threw the rider off, and I was going, that's a cool horse. And the guy said, "You want to ride it?" I said, "Yeah." So I got up and enjoyed the horse. But anyway, I had proved to them that I guess they liked the way I was with the horse, and I feel very blessed by that. So when I was 16, like I said, I drove down there as much as I could. I spent weekends there. My school was very lenient also. Back then, I think schools were easier to deal with. And we live in a very small town, and so the school knew my family very well, and they just knew that I was into this career and I had a path, so they didn't want to restrict me. So they allowed me to stay in school just for 2 courses, and then I could leave every day at 10 o'clock and go ride horses. It was great. And then they would let me take tests on the road so I could live in Virginia. Anyway, so from those days, it was really like a small Europe in Virginia. This man was German, and he brought over a whole group of stallions. He had a string of stallions. We had 25 stallions at one time standing, and we had 300 mares, and we did auctions. It was the first auctions that were done in North America, so I was an auction rider early on, and you just stay on and smile and make it look good, and cha-ching, cha-ching. And I also want to say, too, that I think a very, very important part of my education came early on from my mother. She was a stickler for being fair to a horse. And so I think I didn't know what I was getting back then, but I think now you get a little smarter and older, you start to realize maybe where you got something imprinted from. And my mom was just amazing about being fair with a horse. And I think that's where my rules came in at an early age. And along with that, just riding so many horses allows you to learn. So these auctions and these stallions and these mares and just riding so many horses at a young age gave me the feel for that, as well as I was more of an event rider than I was a dressage rider early on. And I think that also gives you a little bit of a freedom for a horse. You're not afraid, you're not controlling, you're not restrictive, and I think that that's very important for a horse, not to think you're controlling it or restricting it. So I have a big appreciation for nature for a horse. I have a big appreciation for how to develop fitness in a horse, how to play with a horse a little bit. And I think in young horses, that's extremely important. If you want to control a 3-year-old, you're going to get in trouble. Big time. It's going to haunt you big. Because they're just going to ticking time bomb. Ting, 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 ting. And pretty soon they say, I had enough. Bing! So, okay, enough on the background. Let's start with 3-year-olds. And I'm just curious, from a show of hands, please. How many of you ride FEI level? Great. How many of you 3rd level? Great. How many 3-year-olds ride 3-year-olds? Cool. I don't want to anymore, so just to be clear. Yeah? That just helps me get a feel for the group. So 3-year-olds. I think the most important thing for 3-year-olds is rules. You're imprinting rules. And one thing that I really am against is somebody expects rules on the back of the horse to be different than rules on the ground with the horse. I can't stand treats and sugar and all that stuff on the ground. You're inviting problems. If you want a pet, enjoy your dog. If you want a performance horse, develop a performance horse. I really mean that. Because the start of coming into your space on a 3-year-old becomes on top of you, becomes biting you, becomes anxiety. And if those rules are on the ground with you, that horse is not going to respect you on its back. It goes hand in hand. I'm not saying you have to be, the cruel and don't give your horse a chance to have any life. You've got to learn what rules really are. Your space is your space, and that's something else. I think really important when you talk about ages of horses is their concentration level. And I like to look at horses like kids. So if you want a 3-year-old to act like a college student, you're going to get in trouble. And if you want to let a 10-year-old act like he's in kindergarten, you're going to get in trouble. So it all goes hand in hand. And I think the less time with a 3-year-old, the better. The more time you're inviting problems. They're curious. So then you have to start fixing problems. They're going to respect your space, get in their space, rules. Like on the ground, for example, you take them to the paddock, that's training. You're tacking them up, that's training. You're cleaning the stall, that's training. Giving them a bath, that's training. Putting them on the trailer, that's training. And I see too much, and please don't get on me for this, but I have to just be very much speak my heart and my honesty and give you as much as I can tonight, because you all came out to hear me. And that is that I love our country. I really do. I'm so passionate about our country. But every horse, every person, every country has strengths and weaknesses, in my opinion. And when you can recognize them, you're ahead of the game. And our country is too much on the love factor with horses. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to say that, but it is true. It is true. And believe me, I love horses. That's why I do this. I love them. But you got to be careful you know what love is. Seriously. This is a powerful animal. Yeah, this is a powerful animal. And you can get really hurt real quick. And the better your rules are, the better your training on the ground is, carries to the riding. So that's why with 3-year-olds, this is really, really, really important that you don't think, oh, he's so good today and I love him and I want him to love me and love life and I'll go get him with sugar, and then when I groom him, it's so cute when he pushes me around a little bit. I love it. It's so nice. No, that's a problem growing. That's a problem. And he walks over, you go into the paddock. Well, I'll just circle again. And I'll circle again. Oh, I'll circle again. That's a problem. Because when you ride, what's going to happen? He's going to hear a noise, an umbrella, and he's going to put you in the dirt. And God forbid you don't get hurt when you get put in the dirt. So it all relates. It really does. And then we talk about what should we expect with a 3-year-old. I just share my thoughts. I have never, ever been an advocate for stress on 3-year-olds. I think they're youthful. I think that they're still growing, their joints. Their concentration level is not very long. And so I don't like a lot of pressure on 3-year-olds at all. And I think that you've got to make sure the horse has got good feet. You've got to make sure the horse is in balance. Isn't he growth spurt right now? He's suddenly popped up behind and he's down in his forehand. Does he have a wither yet? How's his chest? Is he still this little scrawny, narrow guy? He hasn't opened up yet. All these things come into play for respecting the horse. And when you check those things, it kind of determines how you move forward. So in the riding part, the first thing and most important thing is they develop confidence in people, on the ground and on top. Because without confidence, nothing gets established. Nothing. So they've got to trust you and they've got to respect you. And they can't feel like you have gotten their respect out of just firmness. Because just firmness will haunt you. They're going to escape you when they can. That's that control thing. So one of the most important things in training all the way through, but particularly when you start with young horses and 3-year-olds, is identifying resistance versus playfulness, identifying resistance versus insecurity, resistance versus emotions, environment. Is this really against you? And how do I control it? What do I do with it? This is the key foundation building on a 3-year-old. So for me, they should simply just be ridden with confidence. They shouldn't be restricted with tight necks and strong contact. They should learn to go through their bodies, forward thinking, and try to get the best balance and straightness you can without restriction. And if you have one, you're lucky enough that it's a straightforward horse and he or she has no issues whatsoever, and you want to take it to some horse shows and just get it some experience at a horse show, go for it. But be smart about it, because these are things that you're putting in your horse for life. So if you think that your wonderful baby at home who has 10% of the ride really consistent and 90% not so good, but you think, this is my superstar, it's going great, he loves me, I'm going to take him on the trailer and go to a horse show. You just made a wreck. For his life, I might add. When you scare them young, there's a lot of rebuilding. How many of us know horses that when there's traffic coming head on, your horse is terrified and does a 180? In most cases, that horse was scared. Stays for life. How about a shying horse? Same thing. That's often done early. And shying stays for life. A tongue issue. A tongue issue. Good luck fixing one. Everybody always asks me, Scott, got any miracles for tongues? Heck no. I got a few tricks you can pull out of the hat, but is it really honest? No. It's just luck. I think we make it a little better. So a tongue. So that goes to equipment. What is nice? What is nice when we talk about the bit and the bridle and tightness and looseness? I'm sorry, I'm a horseman. I'm a horseman. And a horse tells me what's nice. The horse tells me what he likes or she likes. There isn't a system. I don't believe in tight nose bands. I don't believe in loose nose bands. I don't believe in high bits, low bits. I believe in what the horse likes, and I explore. And I find out what the horse likes. Because your equipment is your control. And if somebody tells you, oh, the bit has to be placed just here, and the nose band, you've got to fit so many fingers under it, and all of a sudden the horse is doing this and the tongue is flying out, but that's proper. Yeah, right. That is not for that horse. That is not for that horse. And I mean that very, very seriously. And again, I just go out on a limb, sorry, I just share myself, no right, no wrong, just me. When we go to equipment, I like golf as a hobby on the side when I have any time, and I'm terrible at it. And I realized that I can go off and buy the fanciest golf clubs, and my game isn't any better. So if you want to spend like the miracle bits and all that money on fancy bits and think that's the miracle, sorry. It's the hands that the bit is in. It's the experience, it's the horsemanship. And I'll be very honest, I'm not saying don't go home and do this. I'm just saying some of the old-fashioned stuff was pretty smart. So what do I mean by that? Drop noseband. Pretty smart. Why? Because I don't like just words. I like information that backs up the words. For me, on a young horse, the teeth are growing like mad. So go ahead and put your normal cavesson on. Okay? And now when you take the bit, all that skin is getting fatter as you take the bit. Because your nose band has pressure, your bit has pressure, and that skin gets fatter. And then you wonder why the horse won't turn. Because that skin is pressing into the teeth and the horse is nervous and chewing. Guess what it's doing to the inside of its gums? Getting raw and sore. When horses feel pain, what do? They lean or they run. So suddenly, why doesn't the horse not turn anymore? He used to turn great. Yeah, well, maybe check your equipment. Check the health. What's a drop nose band do? Lets all that skin be free. So I'm not saying it's the way to go. I'm just saying some horses love it. Some horses hate it. It's the exploring part. And same with tightness. How snug, how tight, how loose. Start exploring. How high should the bit be? Explore. Let the horse dictate what is right, not the rule book. The horse comes first, always, always, always. So, and then we talk about saddles. So, when we look at these beautiful dressage saddles we have nowadays, they fill up a lot of space on a horse's back. In the old days, look at a saddle. Wasn't happening. Probably, literally, if you measured it, 4 to 6 inches shorter from cantle to pommel. Well, what is that saddle sitting on? That saddle is sitting on a 3-year-old, an uneducated back that has no idea how to carry a rider yet. And you put all that weight in the back of the saddle on their loin? You think they don't have sensitivity in their lower backs? Haha. What do you think puts you in the dirt when they buck? So the lower back is a very, very, very sensitive area to the horse. And so sometimes the best dressage saddle is maybe sometimes not right until the back has a little bit of education. I'm not saying I do that. I'm just saying it's in my toolbox to do on some horses. And that was proven to me greatly. I'd like to think I'm a decent rider and decent horseman. And I had a stallion, again, from this Holsteiner Breed Association that was given to me. And nobody could stay on him, and I was lucky enough I could. And they were impressed, so they let me have the horse for the rest of his career. And it's probably a horse that just taught me so much. And he had a long, long, long back. Long back. And he wasn't the most touted individual in the world. But he would try his heart out for me. And I couldn't figure out why the heck can't I get a canter pirouette out of this horse when I jump him, because I was jumping back then also. When I'm in an all-purpose saddle and I collect him between jumps and combinations, he collects like that. Duh. Weight on the back. So I put I kept my jumping saddle on him, and I rode dressage in my jumping saddle and taught him canter pirouettes. He collected no resistance, 0 resistance. I was like, why did I not think of that sooner? Let's get creative. Let's get creative. So equipment on 3-year-olds, we got to get them comfortable. When there's pain or there's lack of balance, they misbehave. So would I. So would I. So we've got to find out what's comfortable. And then we also go on another important term of how to exercise this 3-year-old. Lunging. Again, when you look at this from I want to have a sound horse for a long time. And he's 3 years old. So if you want to take the approach that I should just let him whip all the steam out every day because he misbehaves when I ride him, so I'll lunge him every day and just fly around until his tension is gone, and then I'll ride him, you could be influencing his future from a soundness point of view. So I personally don't like it. Also, I don't like it because you're teaching him to flee you. So if you let a horse just run from you, you're letting them do that when you're under saddle too. There should be control. So for me, a horse that wants to run all the time, it's 3 years old, I would do groundwork in hand with it, like in hand with it, and get its mind on you. And then start lunging it. Because speed is one of the hardest things on a horse. When they're fast, it's hard on them. It's jamming their bodies, it's loading the forehand, it's really hard on the joints, everything. Speed is horrible. So we want horses to be light-footed, we want horses to be in balance, and you're talking about growth plates still in a 3-year-old, so a lot of lunging I'm not a fan of. However, I don't want anybody getting hurt. So, but if you lunge with a strategy, lunge with a purpose, and lunging is riding. The tempo you see on the lunge line should be the tempo you're riding. Why teach them something different? Makes no sense. The trot should look like the trot you want to ride. The canter should look like the canter you want to ride. The transition should look like the transition you want to ride. It all relates. You're just giving them a chance to not have you on their backs, that they can get warmed up. And then we go to the same thing. This discussion about side reins and different equipment, all those things, everything is about how it's used. It's not fair to label something that it's horrible. Because if you want to say side reins are horrible because they restrict a horse, okay. Well, is it any better then to not have any side reins? The horse is flipping its head around and hitting itself in the bit and jamming its back up? Sorry, I'd rather the side reins. So it's everything that has to work and make sense to the future. And without riding and demonstrating it, I'm just trying to use words for it, that of course you don't want to restrict your horse. I don't want their heads buried between their chests because then there's not balance. And my words were, we need balance and rhythm. That's good on a horse. Doesn't matter what frame, if they have balance and rhythm, you're okay. And let's not just run them. Running is really hard on the body. Plus, it's teaching them that they can get away from you. Because what do horses do in nature when they're scared? They flee. So when you want to ride that first flying change, and you taught your horse how to flee a lot, you might need a fence. So it all relates. It all relates. You know, riding Grand Prix is not like rocket science. It starts on a 3-year-old. It's the same principles. So again, let's give them confidence in us. Let's try to make them comfortable. Let's try to get some natural balance. Let's try to get them forward thinking with light aids. Let's try to get their backs learning how to get soft. I'm not a big fan of doing a lot of sitting trot on 3-year-olds. Again, we're just trying to give them a bit of confidence, learn general straightness, general confidence, all the words general. If you have a gifted one and you want to do more, go for it. If you have one that's growing and out of balance, put them away for a couple of months. Literally, you don't get ahead of the game. You don't think, well, everyday training is a day towards Grand Prix. No, sometimes it goes the opposite. You're going the other way from Grand Prix. So sometimes parking them is better than drilling. I guess I'll stop there for a second. Any questions on 3-year-olds that somebody might have? And then I'm going to move to 4-year-olds.
So do you think it's all right to continue to ride a 3-year-old if you feel they're ready? I've read other articles where the back is still growing, whatever, to just start them on the saddle, get them used to it, and then put them out to pasture until they're 4. Especially with one that's really tall.
Yeah.
And a little concerned about.
Yeah. The question was, is it okay if you have a nice 3-year-old that seems to be going well to keep going and not give it a break and just keep going with it? Absolutely. Some horses love to work. They love it. Like I said, as an example, when I moved to Germany and lived there, the stable I went to, Herbert Rabon, who I credit a lot of my horsemanship for and my riding for, he was only at his stable from 7 in the morning until noon, and then he was gone. And I can't sit still. I need to work. I need to learn. And I'm not moving to another country to sit there and be still. So I'm going to eat that country up and learn as much as I can possibly learn, because that's why I'm there. So I realized, okay, I'll rent 10 stalls at another barn in the afternoon, and I'll go there in the afternoons. So, and I had connections to the Holsteiner breed at that time, and Mr. Rabon's stable is in Holstein, so I was kind of where I had contacts and connections. So some of the breeders wanted to give me horses. So I had these 10 stalls, and I decided I'd buy or have in the barn. I bought some, and breeders gave me some, but I got a lot of 2.5-year-olds because they're inexpensive. Well, inexpensive. They're cheaper. So I had like 6 2.5-year-olds, and they were not for sale. They were from the breeders to develop, and some were mine, and I wanted to keep training them and have Mr. Rabon's help once in a while with them. So what I learned was there's no consistency. From those 6, there was no straight line. They didn't all develop the same way. In 3 weeks, you're going to do this. In 3 more weeks, you're going to do this. And in the end, when they were 5, they all ended up pretty much okay at the same place, but there was a lot of deviation along the way. So again, what we're doing, let's make sure that they are enjoying it. That doesn't mean it's perfect. That doesn't mean, I mean, look, sidestep for a second. I was a really bad kid. Really bad. Like, I could have easily been probably in a juvenile jail. Seriously, I was bad. I was really bad. And thank God I had the most incredible mother. She didn't take any crap. And she could have run the military in this country really well. And thank God I had her, because I was really pushing the line all the time. I was terrible. Honestly, I was terrible. And I'm sorry, some gifted horses are also gamesters. And I know I was, and hopefully that turned out okay. So they need good guidelines. That's the rule part. So you don't want to kill their spirit, but you do want to make sure they have boundaries and that they respect you. So that was just a side note there, that if they're enjoying it, that doesn't mean they're perfect. That just means in general, they're in good balance. They like to work. They test you a little bit. They get right over it. It's all fine. But when you find on a daily basis, ears are back, tail swishing, out of balance, and I'm just trying this saddle, that saddle, and trying this bit and that bit, and it's just not going well, and just, yeah, maybe evaluate. Maybe I should take a break. Yeah, maybe I should just take the horse outside of the ring for a while and just hack it. And stop drilling it. So, but that's again, these guidelines. So then when we go to 4-year-olds, life gets a little bit more serious. So what are we doing on a 4-year-old? We are, at that time, the most important thing is trying to teach the horse how to get connected. So the word connection is too often misused, in my opinion, about contact. Because that's where you connect, you think, to that bit. That is not connection. A connection is the horse's hind legs, back, withers, pole to the bit. This connection, from your aids all the way through the body. What does connection give you? It gives you control. It gives you access to lateral work. Without a connection, going sideways is probably the worst thing you can possibly do for your horse. Because he's going to wiggle everywhere. And you think, oh, I just taught him ladder work. No, you didn't. That's the farthest thing from ladder work that exists. You taught the horse how to go crooked. Congratulations. Congratulations. Enjoy that later in the show ring. 5. Enjoy that when you try the 10-meter circle now for the first time. Oh, where'd the shoulder go? Shoot. So we are really just getting them connected. And I'm not a big fan of the word straightness, because straightness for me is restrictive. I've seen so many straight horses I don't want. They're locked. Yeah, but he's straight. Yeah, but there's no life in him. I can't feel anything in the reins. It's like a board. I put my leg on, nothing happens. Yeah, but he's straight. Yeah, super. So I like the word alignment. Because alignment means I can control my horse. Alignment means I can put the shoulder here, I can put the haunches here, I can take the neck a little bit over here. I have control of alignment. And then out of good alignment becomes straightness, beautiful straightness. And again, there's different styles of riding. Mine is that I like horses that are alive. I like light aids. I don't like restriction. I like a forward-thinking horse. And I don't like to work. I like them to do the work. And I like them to dance under me and not feel like I just need oxygen or my arms are numb. But he's connected, yeah. So one of the most pathetic things I think I've ever heard is I was giving a clinic somewhere and somebody said to me that the past instructor that was there said they have to go to the gym to ride their horse. Are you kidding me? You should go to the gym to feel good about yourself. You should go to the gym to get maybe a little stronger in your core. But to feel that you get fit enough to ride your horse in strength or in, are you kidding me? No way. You should go to the gym to feel good. You should feel physically well. You should be supple. I'd rather you be supple than incredibly fit and tight. So it all goes hand in hand. It all goes hand in hand. I've seen plenty of overweight people ride incredibly well. And I've seen plenty of fit people ride horrible. So again, there's no rules here, guys. There's no rules. And so these 4-year-olds they learn how to use their top line in the connection. They are starting to learn the importance of your aids. And what does that mean? Well, on a 3-year-old, the pretty simple concept is turn and go. And on a 4-year-old, let's start having a little bit more precision in the turns. So for example, a 3-year-old can very, very much be like a boat in the water. And you got some current going. You kind of got to ride the current. And the turn will eventually happen for you a little bit. But what I'd rather you not do is hold the head on the line you thought you wanted, and the shoulder goes that way. I'd rather ride the current and let it line up a little bit. And then when I ride my test, I'm going to cut my corners a little bit on purpose. I'm going to be ahead of where his channel is on a 3-year-old if I'm showing him, that I don't lose him. There's nothing that can happen fast on a 3-year-old. Turn now. What? So a 4-year-old, you can start to have more precision, more owning your lines, teaching the horse a little bit more how to move away from the leg, teaching the horse to shift its balance slightly. Start working on what I would call now transitions. On a 3-year-old, it's pick up the canter. And you can start to make it a transition. But at first, it's pick up the canter. Let's try to trot. So you're putting in these fundamentals on a 4-year-old, which are, again, everything we're doing is within the same structure you want as a Grand Prix horse. It shouldn't change when he's 6 all of a sudden. Contact is contact. You can't teach a horse new contact. Doesn't exist. What he learns young, he learns. So how the body responds to you is where you're within reason. But your aids are the same. I like to think of aids as my way of communicating to the horse. And I don't know about any of you, but like in your school years, about 10:30, 11 o'clock comes around, you're hungry and tired, and you had a teacher that had a really, really just quiet, solemn voice that spoke that way the whole time you were in class, and pretty soon you were asleep and heard half the lectures. If you ride that way, it's exactly what your horse is going to do. Good night. But he's relaxed. Yeah, good. But try to ride a nice transition. It's not going to happen. So you need to be playful with your aids. You need to be able to ask a question when you want to ask a question louder, and you should get a good answer. You should be able to relax the horse. You should be able to kind of rev the horse up a little bit. I want you a little more. Hey, awesome. Hey, let's relax now. So again, you're playing, you've got that dial of energy you start working with on a 4-year-old. Why? Because you're going to start soon lengthenings. You're going to start soon collected transitions. You're going to start soon more difficult things, which have you needing to be able to control the energy. Relax it and crank it up a little bit, like a dial, a volume dial, the energy dial. Do you want the dial on 10 all the time? Heck no. Do you want to be able to go up to 8 and have some control? Yeah, and then let it go down to 2 again. That it's on call when you want it. That's pretty much for me on 3 and 4-year-olds, all I really work on. 4-year-olds, you might want to start more environment work. Take them to horse shows. Take them off the farm and get lessons and get them used to a lot of horses. I mean, those kind of things. Trailering and all those things. You know, get environment into their system a little bit, but not more difficulty of riding lectures. I think I see too often a big misunderstanding, and that is when people think they're achieving suppleness with a crooked horse. That's looseness. That's looseness, not suppleness. For me, there's a huge difference. Supple is connected. Loose is just, go ahead and leak over here. I don't really care what your legs do. Oh, you're moving away from a leg. Awesome. Flat shoulder, hind legs trailing. So I'm not a big fan of thinking about suppleness unless you've got a connection and you're in sitting trot. Now you're developing suppleness because you got the back muscles going all the way from your seat to the bridle, and now you've got the tools to start refining things. The rest is just looseness. And be careful with looseness. Loose, loose, loose is not soft and supple. Loose, loose, loose is exactly that term, loose. And if your horse is limbering and loose, which I use also, when I'm warming up a horse, I let him be a little bit loose. I'm playful with that. I like that. But I really know that that's not supple. That's loose. Get a little bit of limber. Hey, come on, buddy. Cool. And then when sitting trot, start suppleness. And the reason I brought that up is because, again, I'm sorry to go here, but I need to. I love our country. But we love to ride horses on the forehand. Sorry. I'm really sorry, but it's true. It's true. And if you think that's good for your horse, I got news for you. It's not good. Stretching is stretching. Falling on its forehand is falling on its forehand. So what frame do they really have to go in to be proper? Guess what? The horse tells you. The horse tells you. Now, long and low isn't necessarily good. Some horses don't do well with long and low. Their hind legs go so far behind their bodies, they start forging. Their front legs are into the ground. They're so heavy. And then it's just, that's not good. It's simply not good. A horse should always be light-footed. Always. That doesn't mean they have to be energetic and cranked up. I've seen plenty of relaxed, loosened horses stretching that are light-footed still. So I like to find a frame to where I feel my horse is gliding across the ground when it's stretching, when I'm not doing its framework, show framework, when it's stretching. I like a horse to still feel like it's gliding across the ground lightly. And I find a frame in which they enjoy, a frame in which they offer. So that might be 4 inches lower. That might be 18 inches lower. That might be 18 inches longer. I find the one that they like. Because why should I train a horse down on the forehand? I'm sorry, this makes zero, and let me clarify, 0 sense. If your horse doesn't want to stretch, work him. Work him, and then stretch him. Seriously. Why waste 20 minutes forcing him down? That's hard on his body. Makes no sense. Some horses love it right off the bat. Go for it. I mean, 80% maybe do. 20% don't. Why spend 20 minutes forcing him down? Do you think that's easy on him? No. Work him a little bit and then stretch him. As long as your ride has the combination of relaxation, stretching, test frame, the workout is complete. If you can do it at some point in the ride when you want to do it, you're thorough. It doesn't have to be in a certain order. There's no rule book, guys. There's a horse that tells you the way to do it. So I'm a big fan of that. And that's probably for me the most exciting thing in training horses is figuring out that horse. I love it. I absolutely love it. It's the challenge. Every lesson I give, that's the challenge. Every horse I see in front of me, that's the challenge. I want to figure this horse out. I'm not satisfied until I do, because that's the challenge. What tempo should that horse go in? What frame? What gait first? How much walk time before trot time? Maybe no walk time, start trotting, maybe start cantering. Figure it out. There is no system. There's a horse. And the horse gives us the information if we're looking for it. So then life starts getting a lot more serious at 5. So your 5-year-old is basically in college. There should be no more excuses for falling on the forehand and running into you. You got to show up for, I mean, look, you paid his college bills, you better get a freaking 4.0 or, you know. If he fails, he's on the street. No more parents. So, you know, they're mentally much more mature at 5. And you need to ride them in that way and have your standard a little bit higher. That means that their bodies to respond quicker to you, more consistently to you. You should have established by now a connection. You should be implementing suppleness. You should be implementing transitions on a regular basis, consistently. On a 4-year-old, I'm still forgiving on a 4-year-old. You know, if I ride 10 transitions and 8 are good, it's a good day. That's a good day. If I'm riding a 4-year-old and 2 out of 10 transitions aren't good, I got a problem. I better address it. But 8 out of 10 on a 4-year-old, that's a darn good day. 6 out of 10, not a bad day. But I'm certainly striving for a transition. Because the only way I get 8 good ones is if I know what I'm striving for. So when you go to 5-year-olds, there's not that much forgiveness anymore. Transitions are transitions. And why am I saying transitions? Because I think transitions are the key to the future. Period. Again, the word why do I think that instead of just saying it. For me, there's probably nothing more frustrating than going to Europe horse shopping. And you see these horses go around that are, highly priced, and they think there must be something written on my forehead that says sucker. And they really think that's the product I want to buy. They're riding this thing around. And the person looks great on the horse. And their legs, you can see the definition of all their leg muscles. And you don't see any movement in their arms. But it looks good. And the horse is just going around doing its job. I'm not putting a foot wrong. I'm not giving any information. I'm a robot. And I'll write a little tour of a plan that I've been taught to do, my little program. And then you get on it. You say, hey, buddy, what's up? He goes, Nobody home. Gymnastics and transitions. So there's not a lot of time on sale horses that those professionals are doing it to ride a lot of gymnastics and transitions. They got people coming every day to try these horses. They go around like robots. And I find it extremely frustrating. So transitions and gymnastics are the key to the future. So what transitions? When we look at 5-year-olds, what should be expected in a 5-year-old when we talk about transitions? For sure, trot halt. Halt trot. I mean, you want to go down center line and get a good score, right? You better have that one. First impressions. So not only is it good for the horse, you got to do it. What does trot, halt, trot do? And see, I like to look at things as what the horse get from it. Not how it's written as a dressage term. But it helps me understand my horse when I look at what's it give a horse. Well, trot halt is a balance shift. Oh, okay, I learned how to shift your balance a little quicker. Got it. What does halt trot give? Responsive to leg. Upgate. Got it. Cool. So what does, and by the way, trot halt does not mean trot stop on the forehand. Or stepping back. And that's not a halt. That's a poor trying to stand still. There's a connection. There's concentration. The horse is totally thinking about the rider, waiting for the signal, what is next. Waiting for the signal, what is next. Not checked out. In tune with you still. Waiting for the signal as to what is next, director. And then you give the next signal. And you put your leg on to go to the trot. And the horse goes, oh, do I have to today? Ugh. And somebody allows that to happen. And they think, oh, he did a nice halt to trot down the center line. Really? So when you want to do the lengthening, do you think he's going to respond better to your leg when you start the lengthening? Look, they learn out of consistency. Plain and simple. So you can't, it's not fair if you say one time, it's okay, you can lean on my leg. And the next time, no, you can't. They're going, what day is it? What moment is it? It's the same all the time. They learn out of consistency. Look, does your horse know what time he gets fed? Yeah. Does he know what time he goes to the paddock? Yeah. They're routine horses. They're routine animals. Consistent. That's the only way to teach them is repetition consistently. And a standard. A standard. And this is where I think we are too weak. We let our standards be way too sloppy. And it gets you in trouble. It'll get you in trouble. And it's not fair to the horse. So we have trot, halt, trot. And that's, again, we talked about balance shift and response to leg, balance, upward transitions that push. Why is that so important? Because if you let the horse be lazy up into the trot, he's already on the forehand and disengaged behind. It starts with impulsion and balance. Now you just preserve it. Think about that. You start the other way, you're already fixing something. You get in the trot and go, oh shoot, it's behind my leg. Yeah, no kidding. Oh, he's on the forehand. Yeah, really. Wonder why. So let's put it in what they get from us. So get yourselves out of the dressage term and put it in horse terms. What do they get from us in that transition? Now I know what I got to work on. Oh, let's see, I can't really go from the trot to the halt in one step. Well, guess what? Maybe that horse doesn't know how to shift his balance very well. Instead of getting frustrated and saying, oh, he's pulling on me, don't fix the contact, fix the balance shift. When he shifts his balance, then see where your contact is. Then we have transitions within the gait. So I love the word half halt. Oh my gosh, I could speak the whole night on a half halt. I see so many half fixes. I see so many half stops. I see so many half tensions. A half halt is a beautiful thing. It's not a fix. So if you're trotting around and then you don't like the contact and you half halt, that isn't a half halt. That's a half fix. Sorry. That's how I look at it. And I told you tonight, I'm giving you things how I look at it. Because I don't want to get talked into being unclear to my horse. A half halt's beautiful. So when I'm going around and I love my trot, guess what a half halt does? It checks on the trot. Are you with me? Cool. Let's prepare. Cool. If I try to do a half halt in the trot and nothing's happening, guess what? My trot stinks. It's just cruising with no control. So a half halt is the key to how good is this really right now. If you can't half halt, the horse isn't with you. You're not in tune together. Plain and simple. So for me, half halts are beautiful. Half halts are finesse. Half halts are the little secret between you and your horse that no one needs to know. And I call it a check-in. Are you with me? Yep. Cool. How about now? Yep. Cool. How we doing now? Good. So a half halt is used throughout the ride, and it's beautiful. So and again, let's prove that to ourselves. So when a judge says at the end of the test sheet, I'd like to see the use of more half halts, do you think they want to see half stops? Half rips? Something negative, something tense, something pulling, something restrictive? No, they want to see something beautiful, that they see you have control. So half halts are, for me, huge, huge, huge. And I see too often people think that a half halt is done in a split second. So go. So you try to tell me you're trotting along and you do this. Your horse goes, what's going on? That was tense. That was a lot of pressure on the bit suddenly. Oh, that was a lot of seat suddenly. Let's see. I didn't engage. No. I didn't swing on my back. Last time I checked, I didn't come more uphill. And I certainly wasn't really on your seat and supple. So sometimes a half halt has to be kept for a while. Because the degree of collection or the degree of balance you're choosing in a half halt is not a very big degree. You can ride it for 10 strides until the horse feels comfortable, understanding that tempo and that balance. So let me ask you, can you shift balance like that? I can't. And be beautiful. Balance shift is something developed. Yep. A soft muscle is something developed. Try to tell your muscle, hey, soften. You gotta, hey, what's up? Let's relax a little. How about that masseuse going, what's up? So let's make sure we think of things how we expect it to happen. Balance shift isn't like sudden. That's like get off me. Hello, knock it off. Which I do once in a while, of course. For that point. Are you kidding me? Hello. That is not a half halt. That is not a balance shift. That's a knock it off. Exactly what it's called. Knock it off. Are you kidding me? That enables me then to educate the horse to say, thank you. Let's shift our balance elegantly. Thank you. Let's use our bodies as we do this. And this is the key, guys. It's the art of it. The art of it is the finesse to it. But to get to finesse, you got to have rules. That's the whole thing. So I've seen plenty of relaxed horses that can only get fives. Yeah. You need energy and relaxation. Period. Energy and relaxation. One or the other, you got problems. You got to have both. So on these 5-year-olds, we have these half halts. We have transitions within the gait. So one of the hardest things I think on a 5-year-old that I see not done well is extended canter or lengthening the canter, coming back to working canter or collected canter. We see crooked horses. They're going down the long side and the lengthening and the haunches are in. We see horses that go to the forehand and are way, way, way ahead of the rider and not on the seat. So let's make sure we achieve in these things what they're supposed to do. So when you do a lengthening in the canter, the horse should become longer, yes, out of an uphill tendency, not a downhill tendency. It is to elevate the forehand. And when you come back to the canter, it is to lower the croup again and not allow the forehand to collapse and fall and get choppy. So you are now discussing this thing with the hind legs. Come back more under the center of gravity. You are carrying your weight. And I would really highly recommend that we all keep that word in the center of our thoughts. Carrying your weight. We don't talk about that nearly enough. Because the only way you get them up off the forehand is if they're carrying the weight on their hind legs. And I've seen when people say needs more engagement, I've seen people just attack those hind legs like there's no tomorrow. I want them faster, I want them quicker. And those poor shoulders are dying. They're getting trapped. So a horse can only use the hind legs when the forehand gets up out of the way. They go in unison. You can't attack one part of the horse. You've got to go after the entire unit. It works as a unit. So more engagement is only enabled when the forehand is also prepared properly and is also introduced in the rider's thoughts. You can't just think about the hind end and how quick it is. I've seen plenty of good quick hind legs and the horse looks horrible. Because the shoulders look stiff, tense, mouth is busy. But those hind legs are cooking, yeah, good. You need the rest of the piece to all go in unison. And lateral work now. So on a 5-year-old, I do think you're really putting in suppleness now for the first time. Lateral suppleness. So what lateral work should be done on a 5-year-old? Again, this is like totally the individual that we have. There's no real set standard. For sure, shoulder in should be done. No reason why not. Shoulder in should always, that's easy. That's easy. What about haunches in? I'm a little bit more cautious about haunches in because haunches in is a great invitation to trap the forehand and teach crooked. And I see a lot of haunches in that are crooked and on the forehand. And I would not call that a haunches in. I would call it an evasion. So I'm not a huge fan of doing too much haunches in unless you really have the horse good in the shoulders, up into the contact, and you're sure the front legs are as good as the hind end. And you have control of exactly where you're placing the hind legs and their alignment. But shoulder in is an awesome exercise. Of course, always taking into consideration control of the outside rein. And I think that's another key word. Outside rein. I think we're way too addicted in our general riding about the inside rein. And guess what? The inside rein can only be good if the outside rein is. Without the outside rein, the inside rein has no purpose. So that gets you in circles, that gets you in lateral work, that gets you in engagement. You've got to have a good outside rein all the time in riding. On 5-year-olds, lengthening start. But let's talk about our checklist here of things that can really scare a horse or hurt a horse for its future to Grand Prix. Lengthenings is one of those. That's the first one now we hit. We talked about equipment importance, because we don't have a mouth problem, because we can't fix that one. We talked about saddles, because we don't want to disrupt the back. Now we're getting into movements. The first movement that can really screw up a horse. If you start doing lengthenings too early on a horse and they learn to go wide behind, you got a problem that's really hard to fix. Really hard to fix. That's the first real thing we got to watch is lengthenings in the trot. So we got to really check we're not getting wide behind. A little quick in the rhythm is okay, but wide behind? No. Then we got to start figuring out what we do about that wide behind. Maybe less lengthenings, maybe more collection first. Forget lengthenings for a little while. Maybe on the circle. We have to explore. But be very, very careful when you start lengthenings not to get a horse wide behind. That's a habit that's extremely hard to fix. The next one is some people get pretty anxious to do flying changes because they want to get to Prix St. George fast. They got this superstar. So I want to get those flying changes in there. That's another one that can scare them for life. You can make a big wreck in flying changes. So having said that, you can go the other way. So flying changes are a real fun subject because I'm not a huge fan of counter-cantering until they're gray in the face and then starting a flying change because you've told them to never change. And I like a flying change early on to be a little playful. I have eventing in my background. I know very few jumpers that don't do a flying change because they're not restricted. So it's a change of lead on a jumper. It's not a flying change because the horse is not connected to the aids, but it's a change of lead by nature. They do it by nature. So we have to be really careful with flying changes when you're talking about being on their backs, in their back muscles, etc. And that sudden, why is a flying change so interesting for horses? This is another fun one. It's, in my opinion, not an engagement issue when a horse has a late flying change. Because I've seen plenty of horses be able to collect beautifully, like beautiful on the aids. And you go to the flying change and the horse runs or is late or something happens. For me, it's much more about an immediate change of suppleness in their body. And why do I think that? I think that because in nature, when a horse is cantering, let's say on the right lead, its natural body position is the outside of the horse is lower and the inside of the horse is higher. That does not happen in the trot. The trot is level. Yeah. Why do horses buck when you canter? Because that tightness is the first time you hit it. It's the first time you hit it. That's why they buck in the canter. When you do a canter depart, often is bucking, often is takeoff, because that's a humongous change for the first time in the ride that they feel something by nature different. There's no way you can stop the horse from being inside, higher, outside, lower. And by the way the hind leg comes forward in the canter, by nature, is completely different than the way it comes forward in the trot. And it's a more lift of the shoulder for the first time. So when a horse is cantering on the right lead, their natural tendency is to be low on the outside, higher on the inside. And in one split second, you're saying, land and do this. That's, for me, the culprit. Not the engagement part. It's the suppleness needed. So I like to make sure I do a lot more. Do I have control of tempo? Yes. Do I have control of balance through counter canter? Yes. Can I ride canter, walk canter? Yes. Can I supple the horse on my outside aids in true canter? And my inside aids? Because what's the horse going to do in the flying change? It's going to position to the new side suddenly. Well, guess what? I want to make sure I warm that up on my true canter. And then I'll change to make sure he's not locked like, when's the bomb coming? Ding! So again, horses take off out of tightness in most cases. So that's the checklist for flying changes. And that's one you got to really be careful that is one of those you can screw them up for a long time. And if a 5-year-old is still doing walk, trot, canter and just working on basic gaits and connection, totally fine. Let's not push them. There isn't a schedule. There isn't. I've seen plenty of 5-year-olds that are not balanced yet in the canter, and that doesn't restrict them from being pre-St. George at 7. So what? Do what in horsemanship you feel you can do. But the general guideline is that you can ride transitions within the gait. You've started some lateral work, shoulder in, a little haunches in, carefully, maybe even a little half pass. And you have gymnastics and you have frame change, good aids, a confident horse, you're in good shape. At 6 is when they're an adult. No more school. You're out. You need to get a job, and you need to not get fired, and you need to pay your bills, and life goes on. So now 6, it's serious. So at 6, we should really teaching collection for the first time, true collection, cadence, and your transitions should start getting polished. So what transitions on 6-year-olds? I think that there are 2 ways we want to do transitions on horses when we talk about within the gait. So a half halt is spoken for itself. That's a given. But then we start talking about high-level collection, getting to canter pirouettes, getting to piaffe. So those exercises are done when you have a connection. Those exercises are done when the horse is responsive. Those exercises are done in 2 ways. And I'll view that in a playful way. So if your canter in your collected canter for 3rd level or 4th level is going 10 miles an hour, you want to go 11, 12, 13, 14, that the horse is with you. Same way back, that you have rhythm and throughness. And you work your way back to collecting this canter more on the spot. If you always do it that way, the horse can be lazy to your aids. But what that does is it allows you to make sure they're through, trusting, with your aids in front of your seat, and that enables you to then do it much faster. Got it. Enables you to do it much faster. And the goal is you can do it both ways. More gentle through numbers, with beautiful activity and sensitivity and suppleness, and quicker, so you shift the balance more. So more gradual through numbers is suppleness, rhythm, throughness. Quicker is balance shift and responsive to aid. So that tells you your rules, how you want to ride your horse every day. And that's basically what you're talking about on 6-year-olds. Changes should be started. And at 7 and 8, I look at them the same, at 7 and 8-year-olds. Your foundation for collection has been put in. Now the only thing you have to be careful about now on a 7 and 8-year-old is not overfacing the horse. How many flying changes on a line, for example? How many pirouettes that I'm not hard on the body? How steep my half passes, that I don't hurt the legs? What do I really need to do? What fitness do I do? What about double bridle, snaffle? Those discussions start happening. I'm not a big fan to say a horse has to go great in a snaffle before you can put a double bridle on. That's one of those rules again. It's that, what's the horse like? Oh my gosh, I've been fooled so many times. Again, I think I'm a decent rider, and I can't get it done in the snaffle. I'm going, okay, I'll try a double. Duh. He feels beautiful. So let's be nice on the horse. Again, everything is in the use of the rider. If you have good hands, there's no risk with a double bridle. And high-level collection has to be done carefully, because that's one of those ones you can then scare a horse again. If you trap them, they're going to go up. So develop collection gradually is my 2 cents for everybody, okay? You can really scare them. And I think that when we look at collection, we have to make sure it's not a pogo stick in the canter. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, tight, tight, jarry. It should be beautiful with animation, an uphill tendency, engagement, light on the aids. You should be able, in the middle of a canter pirouette, to be able to give in a rein. You should be able to make the pirouette smaller or bigger whenever you want to. You should have control of these things, not just get it done. Get it done is the first stage. Then you got to own it. And when you own it, you know you've got finesse. And I love that phrase, owning it, because then you really are confident. Horse and rider are confident. You can recover when something goes wrong in the show ring. You have control of something. It's not just getting it done. Getting it done is on the way to owning it. And another important thing is your tools. I'm a huge fan, and this might be very controversial. I'm a huge fan of the whip. Oh, you should be able to ride the horse without the whip. Yeah, you're right, you should. But the whip is an extension of your seat. And to teach horses to collect, I think it's much harder on them to be cantering along and say, I want to teach a canter pirouette, start coming back because I don't want to carry a whip. That's an excuse. So I'm going to start to collect. He breaks the trot, I kick the shit out of him. I just tightened his back, scared him. Well, maybe I just could have had a whip there to teach him to sit. Wow, brilliant solution. And when he learns the sensation of collecting, I don't want the whip anymore. Because what we're doing is unnatural. To go is natural. Go forward, go sideways. That's easy from the leg. But to collect is a whole different situation going on for the back muscles. So I would much rather have, when I'm teaching a horse physically how to collect, I'd much rather have a whip to support my seat. I don't want to hear the whip. I don't want to hear it. But I want to just touch a little bit to say, don't break. Hey, come here, tuck more, to teach the horse to sit. And a whip for forward is a poor excuse for leg. Horse never should need a whip to go forward. Leg. Every horse can learn the sensation of leg go, not whip go. That's the quickest way to get a horse really upset. Start whipping it to go forward. That's just a poor excuse for not using your leg. So I'm a huge fan of the whip as an extension of your seat to teach collection. And then you get rid of it when the horse learns collection. You teach it just from your seat and just from your aids. What about spurs? I'm almost wrapping up, don't worry. What about spurs? Same thing. When I see a young horse going around and the rider is gripping like there's no tomorrow with no spur on, thinking that's nice, is it? I don't think so. I don't think you have to be able to ride a 3-year-old, 4-year-old without a spur. If I can use a really light leg and just touch him once in a while and he wakes up a little bit, awesome. I woke up his body, super. Versus gripping and gripping and gripping. Now I just told him that when I use my leg, so what? It's actually worse. So again, all these things we hear, proper bit, spur, no spur, whip, no whip, double bridle, no double bridle, special, super fancy bit, bridle, nose bands, it's horsemanship. It's horsemanship. And it's reading your horse and figuring out with that horse how it goes best. And that is what you use. And that's my philosophy, and I hope that I didn't bore you all to death. But that's my philosophy.